I didn't leave my husband because he cheated, hit me, stopped working, or stopped loving me. I left him because Instagram made my real life feel ugly. That sounds shallow even to me now, but it's the truth. I had a good man, a stable marriage, money in savings, and a real plan for the future. None of it looked exciting enough online, so I started chasing a life that photographed better. By the time I understood what I had traded away, I was alone, in debt, and working in a salon booth I could barely afford. I'm 32 now. This started when I was 30. For the sake of the story, call me Nicole. I was married to my husband, Aaron, for 7 years. We didn't have children. That was partly by choice and partly because we kept saying we'd wait until life was set up better. We wanted to be stable first. We wanted to do things in the right order. At least that's what we used to say. We lived outside Dallas in a nice rental house in a decent neighborhood. Not rich, but comfortable. Aaron was 37 and worked in construction as a project supervisor. He made good money, better than most men our age that we knew. He left early, came home dusty, sunburned sometimes, exhausted most days, but he worked hard and he provided. I worked as a nail tech in a salon suite with 2 other women. I was good at it. I had regular clients, decent tips, and that kind of job where people tell you their business because they're sitting in front of you for an hour and you're holding their hands. We weren't struggling. That's important. This is not one of those stories where I was trapped in some miserable life and wanted to escape. Aaron was a good husband. He was gentle, reliable, the kind of man who noticed when my car needed gas and filled it up without making a big deal out of it. The kind who brought me coffee on Saturdays, rubbed my feet when I complained, and kept a note in his phone with the names of my favorite snacks. He wasn't flashy. That became the problem in my head. He was a regular-looking man. Broad shoulders from real work, strong hands, a little softness around his stomach, a bad habit of wearing old work t-shirts around the house, and absolutely no interest in skincare, gym selfies, trendy restaurants, or pretending to be something he wasn't. He could clean up when he needed to. He looked good in a button-down. But he was never going to be one of those polished men you see online wearing fitted black shirts, expensive watches, and perfect white sneakers, standing next to women in matching neutrals on a balcony in Tulum. And somewhere along the way, I started thinking that mattered. We had been saving to open my own nail salon. Not some giant place, just a small, clean, pretty studio that was mine. We had around $27,000 set aside between savings and a separate business account. That money was years of discipline. Aaron's overtime, my extra clients, skipped trips, used cars instead of nicer ones, saying no to stupid purchases because we both believed we were building something real. Aaron believed in that plan more than I did by the end. That's hard to admit, but it's true. Because I stopped wanting a real life. I started wanting one that looked expensive. If you've never worked in beauty, it's hard to explain how easy it is to start comparing your life to other people's. Women sit in your chair and talk. They show you photos, trips to Cabo, surprise gifts, designer bags, their crazy weekend in Miami, their husband's new truck, a bracelet just because, a rooftop dinner, a first-class flight, a hotel room with rose petals on the bed, a rich boyfriend, a soft life, a husband who spoils them. Most of it is exaggerated, obviously. I know that now. But when you hear enough of it, and then spend your breaks scrolling the same kind of life online, your own life starts feeling small. At first, it was just harmless scrolling. Reels while eating lunch, TikToks before bed, nail pages, fashion pages, home pages, women my age with perfect kitchens and morning routines that looked like magazine ads. Then it became lifestyle influencers, then couples pages, Then feminine energy content, luxury content, dating up content, women saying things like, a man should elevate your life, not just love you. That stuff got into my head in a way I didn't notice at first. I started looking around my own life like I was seeing it through someone else's eyes. The house was nice, but not beautiful enough. My car was reliable, but not the right brand. Our vacations were normal, not aspirational. Our date nights were sweet, but not photogenic. Aaron was good to me, but he didn't look like the men in those videos. I remember one night we were sitting on the couch, Aaron half watching a baseball game, me scrolling, and I saw this couple online in matching workout sets on some resort balcony in Mexico. He had abs. She had glossy waves and a tiny white dress. They had room service on a tray by the pool. Everybody in the comments was saying things like power couple and goals. I looked over at my husband in his old gray shirt and gym shorts, rubbing his shoulder because it hurt from work, and instead of feeling grateful, I felt disappointed. That was the rot setting in. Not because Aaron had changed. Because I had. I started making comments. Small at first. You should come to the gym with me. You'd look really good if you leaned out a little. Can you stop wearing those shirts outside? They make you look older. Why don't you ever post me? Why don't we ever go anywhere nice? None of those sentences sounded evil in my head. They sounded like improvement. Aaron laughed most of them off at first. Then he got quieter. One night I said, "You used to care more how you looked." He looked confused and said, "When?" And the truth was, he had always been the same man. Strong, solid, simple. I had just stopped valuing those things because they didn't perform well in my imagination. I also started spending more. A lot more. At first, I justified it as building my brand. As a nail tech, that sounds reasonable. Better photos, better clothes, better lighting, better furniture in the salon, a ring light, a logo refresh, a new booking site. Then it drifted into hair appointments I couldn't afford, facials, Botox, weekend hotel stays for content, outfits I bought to wear once, and expensive dinners where the main point was getting the table picture. Aaron would ask, "How much was that?" And I'd say, "It's an investment." That word did a lot of damage. The first time I used money from our salon savings for something that had nothing to do with the salon, I told myself it was temporary. It was $1,200 for a 3-night trip to Scottsdale with 2 women from the salon. One of them, Tasha, had gotten obsessed with content creation and kept saying things like, "You have to spend money to look like money." We split a cute Airbnb, took pictures by the pool, went to one overpriced brunch, and spent half the trip changing outfits and finding walls to pose against. It was ridiculous. At the time, it felt glamorous. I posted everything. Sunset pictures, hotel mirrors, cocktails, a robe selfie, captions about protecting my peace and stepping into abundance, even though the whole trip had gone on a credit card, and I spent most of it checking whether people had viewed my stories. When I got home, Aaron hugged me and asked if I had fun. I kissed him, told him yes, and didn't mention where the money came from. That's the thing about this kind of addiction. It doesn't look like addiction at first, because nobody sees a woman in a cute dress and thinks, she's spiraling. But I was. I started wanting the feeling more than the life behind it. I wanted people to think we were doing better than we were. I wanted women from high school to wonder how I suddenly had such a nice life. I wanted clients to feel like I was aspirational, not just good at nails. And the more I chased that image, the more embarrassed I became by anything normal. Aaron hated taking pictures, not in a rude way. He'd do it if I asked. But he always looked a little stiff, like a man who'd rather be loading lumber than posing with a cocktail. He smiled with his whole face, not his jaw. He didn't suck in his stomach. He didn't know his angles. He didn't care. That started to irritate me more than it should have. One night before dinner with friends, I asked him to change shirts because the one he had on didn't look elevated. He stared at me for a second and said, "Elevated?" I said, "You know what I mean." He said, "No, actually, I don't." I rolled my eyes and said, "You never try." That hurt him. I saw it. But instead of stopping, I kept going. I wanted him in the gym more. I wanted him tanner, leaner, sharper. I wanted him to look like the men attached to women whose lives I envied. He finally said one night, very calmly, "Nicole, are you trying to improve our life? Or are you trying to make it look expensive?" I got defensive immediately. "You're just saying that because you're comfortable being average." He looked at me like I had slapped him. Then he said one of the lines I still hear in my head. "I'm not trying to look rich online. I'm trying to build a real life with you." I should have heard him. Instead, I thought he was small-minded. That same year, I got closer to a client named Vanessa. She was one of those women who always looked polished. Designer sunglasses, smooth hair, big stories. She talked about private dinners, men with money, leveling up, and the importance of not wasting your pretty years. She loved my work and started inviting me out. Brunches, rooftops, launch parties, birthday dinners, where everybody took pictures for 20 minutes before touching the food. Vanessa loved telling me I was too pretty to live such a regular life. She'd say things like, "Girl, no offense, but construction men stay stuck." Or, "You need a man who matches the life you're trying to step into." Or the one that really got me, "A husband should be a flex, not another project." I know how stupid that sounds, but if you hear something often enough while you're already dissatisfied, it starts sounding like truth. Meanwhile, Aaron kept being Aaron. He helped me redo my salon corner at home when I wanted nicer photos. He looked over lease options for salon spaces with me. He drove me to a beauty supply warehouse one Saturday because my car was in the shop. He listened when I talked about what I wanted for my business. He never once told me my dream was unrealistic, but I stopped seeing any of that because none of it made good content. The spending got worse. I rented a designer bag for a month. I bought shoes I had nowhere real to wear. I booked a one-night stay at a luxury hotel downtown and told Aaron it was a business branding shoot. In reality, I took selfies in the lobby, pictures in the mirror, and one staged breakfast tray photo that made it look like we were living better than we were. Aaron saw the credit card statement and asked, "What exactly are we branding?" I said, "My future." He asked, "With our business money?" That was the first real fight. I said he didn't understand marketing. He said this wasn't marketing. I said he was holding me back because he thought too small. He said, very quietly, "You don't want a husband anymore. You want a prop for your pictures." I left the room because I knew he was right and I couldn't stand it. The twist is that, even then, with all the tension, Aaron was still planning for us. I didn't know that at the time. I found out later. At the time, all I knew was that I had drained almost all the money we had saved for my salon and replaced our future with shopping bags, filtered vacations, and a few hundred extra followers who didn't care whether I lived or died. Then I did the cruelest thing. I started believing I had settled. I told myself Aaron was a good man, but not my forever man, not the man for the life I wanted now. I told myself I had grown and he hadn't. I told myself love wasn't enough. I told myself stability was not the same as passion. I told myself I deserved more. Social media gives you an endless supply of language to justify selfishness if you're in the mood to hear it. I was the one who asked for a separation. Even now, writing that makes me feel sick. I sat at our kitchen table and told my husband I didn't think we wanted the same things anymore. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just looked tired. He asked, Is this about money? I said, It's about everything. He asked, Is there someone else? I said no, which was true. There wasn't another man. There were just 1,000 fake lives in my phone making me hate my own. Then he asked, Do you really think another life is waiting for you if you blow this one up? I said, I think I'm meant for more than this. I wish you could have seen his face when I said this. Because this was him, our home, our savings, his love, our plan. He sat there for a long time and then said, I was going to show you something on our anniversary next week. He went to the bedroom and came back with a folder. Inside were printouts for a small salon space he had found, budget notes in his handwriting, a rough renovation estimate from one of his contractor friends, a draft business plan, even a note about the kind of front window I had once said I wanted. He had been putting it together quietly because he wanted to surprise me when the timing was right. I remember feeling like all the air had left the room. I said, Why didn't you tell me? He looked at me for a second and said, Because I thought we were building something together. I didn't know I was competing with your phone. That should have stopped everything. It should have broken me open right there. Instead, I doubled down, because by then, admitting I had destroyed something good felt harder than leaving. So I left. I rented a one-bedroom apartment that cost more than I should have spent. Vanessa helped me find it and called it a fresh start. I bought new decor because the place needed to look right. I posted carefully cropped photos. I acted like I was entering a better version of my life. For maybe a month, I felt relieved. Free, desired, interesting. Then, real life arrived. The followers did not become income. The branding did not become a business. Vanessa stopped inviting me out once I started saying no because I couldn't afford it. The women from those rooftop dinners drifted away. One of them texted me once asking if I still had the contact for the bag rental service. That tells you everything. Then I found out something else. Vanessa wasn't rich. Not even close. She was leasing a car she could barely pay for, carrying credit card balances she hid from everyone, wearing borrowed jewelry to events, and living in a condo her ex had helped her get. The woman whose life had made me question my marriage was faking most of hers. That was the unexpected part. The fantasy I blew up my life for wasn't even real. By then, it was too late. Aaron filed for divorce quietly. No drama, no public humiliation, just paperwork and distance. He didn't chase me. He didn't try to win me back. He was done once he understood I had chosen fantasy over him on purpose. Then the debt surfaced properly. Credit cards, payment plans. Salon supplies I had told myself were investments. The hotel, the clothes, the trips, the rented luxury, the drained business savings. I had nothing to open a salon with, nothing to fall back on, nothing to post that mattered, and no husband coming home at 6 p.m. with takeout and patience. The worst night was probably 6 months after I left. I was sitting alone on my apartment floor because I hadn't bought a proper couch yet. I had collection notices on the counter, overdue bills, and a half-finished bowl of cereal because groceries were starting to feel expensive in a way they never had before. I opened my phone out of habit and saw an old photo memory. It was Aaron and me on a cheap weekend trip to Fredericksburg from years earlier. No luxury resort. No coordinated outfits. He had his arm around me and was smiling that full, unpolished smile I used to think looked awkward in pictures. And I started crying so hard I had to put my phone down. Because for the first time, I could see it clearly. I had not been trapped. I had been loved. The divorce was finalized last year. There was no dramatic final conversation, just signatures, practical details, and the strange coldness that comes after too much disappointment. Aaron kept the truck, the savings that were left, and his dignity. I kept my clothes, my ring light, my debt, and a level of shame that was hard to explain to anyone who hadn't lived it. I still work in nails, but not in my own salon. I rent a booth in a regular place on the edge of town. It's fine. The women are nice. The work is honest. Some weeks are good, some are slow. I make payments on debt every month and pretend not to look at how long it will take to dig out. Vanessa is gone from my life. Most of those social media women are. Funny how fast people disappear when you stop looking useful to their image. I don't blame Aaron for anything anymore. That's one of the few clean things I can say. He was not controlling. He was not lazy. He was not some unattractive burden keeping me from greatness. He was a good man with rough hands, a tired back, a decent heart, and a real plan for our life. I just stopped valuing real things. That's what social media did to me, or maybe what I let it do to me. It made tenderness look boring. It made stability look small. It made discipline look less exciting than performance. It made a good husband seem ordinary because he didn't photograph like a fantasy. I used to be embarrassed that Aaron didn't look like the men online, that he didn't go to the gym constantly, didn't dress like an influencer, didn't know how to stand with one hand in his pocket and the perfect watch showing. Now I understand something I was too immature to see then. He didn't know how to look like those men because he was busy being something better. He was earning, building, caring, planning, loving. He knew how to come home every day. He knew how to put money aside. He knew how to be gentle when I was difficult. He knew how to believe in a future I kept sabotaging. A few months ago, I saw him in public for the first time in a long time. We were both at a hardware store, of all places. He looked the same, maybe a little leaner, maybe a little older, still normal. Still himself. He saw me, nodded politely, asked how I'd been. That was it. No bitterness, no flirting, no sign that he had spent the last year pining for me the way some cruel part of me once expected he might. He had moved on in the most mature way possible. And I walked back to my car and cried harder than I had the day I signed the divorce papers. Because regret hits differently when nobody is coming to rescue you from it. I'm writing this because people laugh when you say social media addiction, like it just means being on your phone too much. But for me, it was deeper than that. I was addicted to comparison, addicted to validation, addicted to the idea that my life only counted if strangers envied it. And once you start living for envy, gratitude dies fast. If I could say one honest thing to the version of me who was scrolling in bed, comparing Aaron to men who probably borrowed half the things they posed with, it would be this. The life you are calling boring is the life someone else is praying for. A kind husband, a peaceful home, a savings account, a real plan, a man who values family more than aesthetics. I wanted an Instagram husband. What I had was a real one, and I traded him for filtered pictures, fake luxury, and the temporary thrill of looking more successful than I really was. The pictures are gone now. The likes are gone. The women I tried to impress are gone. The debt is still here. And so is the knowledge that I destroyed a good marriage because I mistook attention for value and image for happiness. That's the truth. I didn't lose my husband because life was unfair. I lost him because I stopped seeing love if it didn't look expensive on a screen.